Former FBI Director James Comey, now novelist James Comey, and Instagram superstar James Comey is attacking Kash Patel and Dan Bongino and President Trump. And you, by the way, if you voted for Trump, he's attacking you and calling you names. So Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, they're fighting back. We're going to show you all the video coming up in just a second. Also, we've got more judges blocking Donald Trump's moves. 3 cases in just the last 12 hours. Way outside their jurisdiction. And in one of these cases, well, the fix was in when the judges were selected to make the decision in the first place. We're going to reveal all coming up in just a second. And also, fascinating conversation, ecstasy, Molly, a drug that you remember from street use maybe, or going to a club. I mean, you don't remember it. You never used it. But apparently, this drug could actually be incredibly beneficial for our vets who are suffering from PTSD. And we're going to dive deep into that topic coming up right now. We are brought to you by Birch Gold. My name's Larry O'Connor, and you can call me Larry. I'm like, you remember ecstasy? And I'm like, oh, no, you don't. You don't remember that at all. What am I talking about? I don't either, by the way. No idea. The Trump administration has their sleeves rolled up in streamlining monumental moves right now as we speak. But it's difficult for them to take your personal finances into account when trying to fix the country, right? That's your responsibility. You have to fix that. And that's why tens of thousands of Americans are buying gold right now from Birch Gold. In the past 12 months, the value of gold has increased by 30%. Central banks are buying gold in large quantities. And of course, we've talked about the Rio reset. That's on the horizon, happens in July. That's when the BRICS nations are trying to unseat the US dollar as the global reserve. But you can find peace of mind in gold. Birch Gold makes it extremely easy to convert an existing IRA or 401k into a tax-sheltered IRA in physical gold, or you can just buy some gold to store at home. Just text my name, Larry, to 989898. Birch Gold's going to send you a free info kit on gold. There's no obligation, only useful information. They've got an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau, thousands of happy customers. Diversify your savings today with Birch Gold. Text my name, Larry, Larry. Text it to 989898. Do it today. James Comey, former FBI director, is a narcissistic, egomaniacal megalomaniac, and he's a real big jerk. But how do I really feel? Well, I'm going to show you what he had to say, attacking Dan Bongino, attacking Kash Patel, attacking Donald Trump, and attacking you if you support those men. If you voted for Donald Trump, he's got fighting words for you. And, well, the good news is you don't have to fight him back. You got Dan Bongino and Kash Patel to do it. Both of them appeared on separate interviews with Fox News. Bongino this morning on Fox and Friends.
Along the beach, and they saw the shells, he and his wife, and he put it on social media, says he thought it was innocent. He was the director of the FBI, but thought it was innocent. He knows what 86 means. Then Kash Patel said, now we have all these copycats, and now y'all are having to pull resources from all these serious crimes, terrorists, gang-related individuals, drug traffickers, and people who are abusing children. You're pulling them off to go research these copycats because we can't afford another assassination attempt.
I got to tell you, of all the things that have surprised me in the close to now 3 months I've been here is the depravity of Jim Comey. This man is a disgrace to the badge, the FBI, and the country. What he's doing right now, one, going out and taking shots at Kash. Kash doesn't belong. Kash was the chief of staff at the Department of. Kash is a patriot. Kash has served in numerous high-level roles, taking personal shots while you're on the beach, implying a threat towards the president and blaming your wife about it. And let me just add about James Comey, Saint Comey, who walks around there moralizing to everyone how wonderful of a human being he is. What you said is absolutely accurate. We have wasted countless man hours now running out tips to our tip line about people putting 8647 because of Jim Comey, because he cannot control himself and his emotions. He is a child. He is a big child. And let me tell you one more thing. Jim Comey, who wants you to believe, Jim Comey taking a shot at the president. Oh, look at me. I'm such a victim. The president's going after me. He's making a ton of money on this book. The only person that got prosecuted was the president. Jim Comey, we're finding stuff even now. Wait till you read the stuff that's coming out.
Does he still have loyalists in the building? Because when I hear the FBI director saying, you guys are finding boxes that are hidden, okay, how does that happen in the Bureau?
Well, we were there a couple of weeks, and luckily there were a lot of people up there who grabbed us by the arm the minute we came in and said, thank you for being here. You know, we need to talk. There are people there who are really horrified at what happened. And there was a room, and we found stuff, a lot of stuff.
A hidden room.
I wouldn't call it hidden, but hidden from us at least, and not mentioned to us. And then we found stuff in there, and a lot of it's from the Comey era. And we are working our damnedest right now to declassify. And just so you know, because I get the public, I totally understand people saying, well, do it now. The process is not all the information is ours to declassify. Some is other intelligence agencies. It's not, we literally can't do it. Once that gets done and that gets out there and you read some of the stuff we found that, by the way, was not processed through the normal procedure, digitizing it, putting in FBI records. We found it in bags, hiding under Jim Comey's FBI. Quickly, you're going to be stunned.
The shells on the beach. Can you not talk to social media and say, y'all take this down? If you see anyone posting this, take it down. It's a threat to the president's life. Second thing, can you arrest people that post these like Comey?
We make arrest decisions based on an interaction with the Department of Justice. We're the FBI, Federal Bureau of Investigation, not prosecution. The problem is a lot of these cases haven't been a Secret Service agent, is you're going to prove intent. And here's what you don't want. You say you arrest them, and he goes, there's not a magistrate that's going to, and the guy walks out of court doing a victory.
You got to build the right case.
You have to build a case. You need to build probable cause. I don't want to do what the left did, which is jump the gun. I mean, then you have a situation like the prior deputy director, prior to abate, Andrew McCabe, who goes back, files a lawsuit. This guy was engaged in one of the biggest scandals in American history. He got $200,000, I believe, and his pension. You have to do this the right way.
What about social media?
And he also got a network contract, so he's an expert commenting.
That's right. He's working over at CNN right now, of course. That's good stuff, and quite a headline there, as you heard from Dan Bongino, that there's a room full of stuff, as he put it, a bunch of stuff that was hidden from them. It was all stuff that happened under Comey, and they're going through it. So I'm looking forward to seeing what's in the stuff. Now, compare the straightforward sort of communication style of Dan Bongino with how, you know what, we'll get to James Comey in a second. Let's first turn to Kash Patel. Kash Patel, also last night, this is on Bret Baier's show. He also had plenty to say about his predecessor.
That's James Comey.
If he wants to come after me, no problem. I've been living rent-free in that guy's head for years, and that's just a bonus. Do you know how many copycats we've had to investigate as a result of that beachside venture from the former director?
Is that right?
Do you know how many agents I've had to take offline from chasing down child sex predators, fentanyl traffickers, terrorists? Because everywhere across this country, people are popping up on social media and think that a threat to the life of the president of the United States is a joke, and they can do it because he did it. That's what I'm having to deal with every single day. And that's what I'm having to pull my agents and analysts off, because he thought it was funny to go out there and make a political statement.
The 8647, the president said that he believed it was an assassination message. On assassination attempts, I did ask the president on the Middle East trip about this. Is there frustration on your part? Will we get transparency? Will we know the bottom line story?
It's very interesting because we have great people. I think Pam is incredible. I think Kash is incredible. I'm relying on my people to tell me what it is. We have deep-seated craziness in this country, and I'm relying on my people. And so far, they're good. But so far, and in this case, it's Secret Service, they tell me it's fine. But it's a little hard to believe.
A little hard to believe, considering my ear still hurts a little bit from that bullet that whizzed by. All right, so I appreciate the fact that Dan Bongino doesn't hold anything back, and he just says, let me tell you something about Comey, and then he tells you about Comey. Kash Patel says, let me tell you something about Comey, and he tells you about Comey. Now compare that approach, just a straightforward, tell it like it is, straight talk kind of approach, with this smarmy, obnoxious, smirking, duplicitous, lying sack of shit who used to be sitting holding the reins of power at the most powerful law enforcement agency in America, the director of the FBI, this guy who everyone calls a saint, the left and the media love this guy. He's the last good cop in America. He's the most honest man in D.C. He's James Comey. Well, all right. So Comey was asked about Dan Bongino, the deputy director. He was asked about the fact that Dan Bongino put out on social media that they are investigating and reopening the investigations into the cocaine at the White House, the J6 pipe bomber, and the, what was the third one? The leak of the Dobbs decision at the Supreme Court. Now watch Comey and the way he reacts to this. And none of it seems genuine. None of it seems honest. It's like he's playing a part. He's like a bad amateur actor in community theater. Watch him, but at the same time, watch the passive aggressive way he goes on the attack against Bongino and Kash Patel, all while acting like Kash, I'm just a good guy. I have no idea what's going on. I have no idea what this means. I have no idea what that means. But I mean, he probably doesn't have much of an idea because he's not the sharpest tool in the drawer. But take a watch.
Supported by a lot of conservatives out there. What do you make of this?
It's a little confusing to me, honestly. I'm sure it's a huge adjustment to go from being a podcaster to being the deputy director of the FBI, but I don't understand this tweet. First of all, I assume that the investigation of the pipe bomb that was found on January 6th was never closed. The FBI never closes such a thing. So I guess it means they're going to focus on it more. And as to the other things, I thought the Supreme Court marshal had investigated the leak of the opinion, the draft opinion. I don't know what the FBI's role is there. Cocaine at the White House, I thought the Secret Service investigated that. So I don't follow it and understand it. I also don't understand who the audience is for this tweet. The FBI often calls for public assistance or in matters of great public concern will announce an investigation to reassure the public. This seems much more narrowly targeted, maybe to a former podcast audience.
All right, and I'll jump in here. There's more here. So there's the attack on Bongino because he's just a podcaster. So again, Dan Bongino, he's a former cop. He's a former Secret Service agent. He has great contacts within the federal government law enforcement agencies. He's also run for Senate. He's run for Congress. He's been in the public eye for quite some time. And frankly, he did more investigative reporting on the Russiagate hoax. See, Comey's got his ass out of shape here, because he knows that Bongino exposed all the lies that Comey was engaged in with Russiagate. That's the bottom line here. And so he's got his nose out of joint, as it were. But did you notice, let me just explain something to you. Because he's acting so beleaguered. James Comey's so, I don't know. I don't understand this. I thought that this was like, how am I supposed to know? I was just walking on the beach. I just found some seashells. See, if that's really truly how he felt, you know what the appropriate answer would, you know how a normal person would have answered Wolf Blitzer's question about this? If he really didn't understand it, he didn't know anything about it, and really just didn't want to get involved in all of this craziness going on, because he's just an author now and he just wants to talk about his book. Here's what he would have said. He would have said, you know what, Wolf, I honestly don't know what's going on over there. That's really up to them. You should ask them what's going on. But here, let me tell you about my book, because I'm really proud of the work that I've done on my book. See, that's what a normal person would say. But instead, he pretends like he's like, golly gee willikers, I have no idea what Dan Bongino's talking about. I guess he's just, it's really hard for him as a former podcaster. He's acting like one of the women at The View. He's acting like a cast member from Sex and the City, right? With all this, oh gosh, gee, it's just terrible that you've had to go from being a podcaster to now being deputy director of the FBI. Must be hard for you. Which is sort of this girly, passive-aggressive way of saying, you don't know what you're doing, bitch. Right? That's what he's really saying. But he's acting, again, like a teenage girl on Instagram. Everything about this man is a fraud. An absolute fraud. He's not acting like someone who wants to be removed from all of this. I'm not political. I'm just the former FBI director. I never got involved in politics. I just called balls and strikes. I'm just a cop, so don't drag me into these politics. And yet everything he says is so calculated and so political. You know what he's really sounding like? He's not sounding like a former FBI director. He's not sounding like an author of a novel that he's trying to sell. He's acting like a political operative who either wants to run for office or maybe wants to go back to his old gig as the FBI director when there's a new president who might appoint him. That's what he's sounding like. Don't believe me? Well, take a look at his next swipe. This one at Kash Patel.
That's potentially what's going on. I want to get your also reaction to an exchange the new FBI director, Kash Patel, had with Democratic Senator Patty Murray during a recent congressional hearing. Listen to this.
Director Patel, where is the FY 2026 budget request for the FBI?
It's being worked on, ma'am.
Have you reviewed it? Have you approved it?
Not yet.
When will we get it?
As soon as I can get it from my interagency partners and get it approved.
That is insufficient and deeply disturbing. No response?
I've given my response.
Are you
now before Wolf sets up his question and Director Comey's answer, I just want you to notice, and I'm sure you did, how much editing took place in that little package they just presented. All right. There was a whole lot of both Senator Murray's questions and Kash Patel's answers that got cut out. But also, let's point out that they're trying to make this the huge gotcha moment. Where's your budget for the next fiscal year? Kash Patel has been in office right now, or been in the desk of FBI director for under 100 days. He didn't begin the same day Donald Trump did. He had a confirmation process. He had to get sworn in. He had to give it. It's been, what, 2.5 months as FBI director. Well, let's go. Where's your budget for the fiscal year next year? And by the way, the fiscal year starts on October 1st. So they're acting like this is a huge scandal, right? I don't remember. Do you ever remember Patty Murray asking the former FBI director about where their budget was? Oh, no, she didn't. You know why? Because the Democrats who have been running Congress for the last several years have been on continuing resolution after continuing resolution after continuing resolution. So there is no budget. They haven't had a budget. So the fiscal year 2026 that begins on October 1st, she's now got her panties in a wad. There's an image. And they're trying to make a big scandal out of it, which it is not. All right, so go ahead. Here, after all that deceptive editing, setting up this fake controversy, let's tee it up now for Comey.
Are you concerned that the FBI will still be able to fulfill all of its important duties with Director Kash Patel leading the Bureau?
I hope so. That I cringe at that clip. I actually feel kind of sorry for the guy. It's like showing up for a final exam with no pencils and no paper, and you didn't even know there was a final exam. And so I hope the career people are able to support the director and the deputy director. There are lots of people in the FBI who know what they're doing. I hope these two guys are letting them guide them.
You think they know what they're doing?
The career people know what they're doing.
No. The career people know what they're doing, but the new director and the deputy director.
Nothing in their life or their career gives me confidence that they know anything about leading an organization like that. And so I would have serious doubts. I bet they do internally about whether they have doubts. Great. Let the people who know what they're doing give you advice and listen to them.
You know, you know me, I like to be polite as much as possible. I don't like to call people names. I like to just sort of deliver the news, deliver my opinion, and ultimately let you reach your own conclusion. But may I just say, for the record, because I don't want this moment to pass without you knowing exactly how I feel, what a complete and total hole. I mean, the biggest hole you're going to find. And understand something here as we move on to one more interview that James Comey is having, because he's really not political. He doesn't want to get involved in politics. He just cares about the Bureau and the institution of the FBI and truth, justice, and the American way. So, of course, he sat with Jen Psaki on MSNBC. As you just saw him attack Dan Bongino, attack Kash Patel. He never stops attacking Donald Trump. But now he's going to go after you.
Do you think there's one of the things that is happening now is that the Trump administration is, of course, testing the system in ways it hasn't been tested before. In the law enforcement sense, do you think there are laws that should be put in place that would help better manage this that aren't in place now? I mean, are we equipped? Is the law enforcement system and the legal system equipped to deal with what we're seeing now?
Probably there could be changes at the margins, but in the main, we have the tools. There are cultural impediments to doing this work. Let's say you work in the FBI. You know that one of the two political parties is, let me put it nicely, white supremacist adjacent at a minimum. And so why would you want to throw your career on that side of the line and be summoned to Capitol Hill to be asked, why are you pursuing these innocent groups? And so we have a cultural impediment to working it effectively that should get more attention than it does.
Wow. I'm sorry if I can't remember if I said it before or not, but let me just repeat myself. Asshole. So yeah, he's coming after you. He's coming after an entire political party. It's remarkable, if you think about it, that this man, just a handful of years ago, was in charge of the most powerful law enforcement agency in this country. You know, all these stories about how he used his position to persecute people who ran up against him politically. You know, he bragged about the fact that he sent FBI agents to the White House. He never would have done it under any other administration, but he thought he'd get away with it under Trump to go question General Flynn, the national security advisor, in the first few weeks of the administration. And boy, they got him all right. That's how Comey operates. But, you know, all of those things going after the Trump campaign, pulling FISA warrants on innocent people like Carter Page, who will never get his reputation back, even though he's never committed a crime in this country. But they still treated him like a Russian spy and had a FISA warrant on him, a Naval Academy graduate and a veteran of the United States Navy, Carter Page. But they don't care about ruining people's reputations. They don't care about ruining people's lives if you can use your power at the FBI and in the Justice Department as a political weapon against your enemies. These are all the accusations that we have levied against James Comey until once we found out exactly what went on under his watch. And he claimed, oh, no, I'm not political at all. I don't take any political bias to the table. And yet, did you just hear how he described the Republican Party, the entire party, the people who vote for the party, as well as the people who are officially members of the party, you know, they hold elected office as a Republican? How did he just describe you, a Republican voter?
Changes at the margins, but in the main, we have the tools. There are cultural impediments to doing this work. Let's say you work in the FBI. You know that one of the two political parties is, let me put it nicely, white supremacist adjacent at a minimum. And so why would you want to throw your
white supremacist adjacent at a minimum? That's what he thinks of you. That's what he just said about you. And by the way, he paused, you know, for dramatic effect and for Jen Psaki and the MSNBC audience. And he said, let's put it nicely. In other words, he has a way of saying it that isn't nice. But he decided that he's such a cutesy pie that he wanted to put it nicely. And he called y'all white supremacist adjacent. I'm guessing the not very nice way of saying his opinion is that you're just a flat out racist. You're a Klansman. You're a Nazi. That's James Comey. That's James Comey, who the left and Democrats and this network, MSNBC. I mean, where's Jen Psaki saying, hold on, Director Comey, isn't that a little too far? You just called an entire political party akin to a Klan. Isn't that a bit much? But no, at MSNBC, that's typical. That's normal. Fine. They are who they are. This guy was the director of the FBI. He had subpoena power. He could work with the U.S. attorneys and call a grand jury. He could ruin your life. And he did. He did. He ruined many people's lives. And now we know, he said the quiet part out loud. Those people's lives he ruined were Republicans. And it makes righteous sense because, in his opinion, to put it nicely, Republicans are white supremacists. But don't miss the really, really important message embedded in this atrocious, offensive moment. Let's roll it back just a little bit, because this statement about Republicans being, let's put it nicely, white supremacist adjacent, that message is not for Jen Psaki, and it's not for the audience at MSNBC. He's specifically directing this message to anyone who currently works at the FBI. Understand what he's saying here.
You work in the FBI, you know that one of the two political parties is, let me put it nicely, white supremacist adjacent at a minimum. And so why would you want to throw your career on that side of the line and be summoned to Capitol Hill to be asked, why are you pursuing these innocent groups?
Did you catch that? This is the former director of the FBI using this platform, and by the way, Universal Comcast allowing their platform to be used in such a way, to send a message to anyone who is currently working at the FBI that if they follow the directions and commands and orders of their chain of command, going all the way up to the director of the FBI, to pursue investigations that they're being told to pursue, that, gee, it sure would be a shame that you throw your career away and have to spend all this time up on Capitol Hill having to answer for why you're helping out the white supremacists. That's James Comey. That's what he just said. He's trying to poison whoever's left at the FBI and build up the resistance. I'm sorry, have I called him an asshole yet? Back to Bongino, who continued to try to defend you and himself and his director and the agency and the rule of law this morning on Fox and Friends. And also, by the way, he revealed quite a bit more about what they've learned so far in their short time on the job.
Those two cases obviously are of significant public interest. I'm just telling you what we see in the file. I just want to be crystal clear on this. I am not asking anyone to believe me. I'm telling you what's there and what isn't.
Right.
There is nothing in the file at this point on the Epstein case, and there's going to be a disclosure on this coming shortly. We are working through there is video. That is something the public does
There's video of him killing himself.
No, not the actual act, but the entire MCC Bay, it was only one camera. There's video that when you look at the video, and we will release, that's what's taken a while on this. We are working on cleaning it up to make sure you have an enhanced, and we're going to give the original so you don't think there were any shenanigans. You're going to see there's no one there but him.
Right.
There's just nobody there. So I say to people all the time, if you have a tip, let us know. But there's no DNA, there's no audio, there's no fingerprints, there's no suspects, there's no accomplices, there's no tips, there is nothing. If you have it, I'm happy to see it. There's video clear as day. He's the only person in there and the only person coming out. You can see it.
All right, so there he is again talking about the Epstein killing, unaliving. Is that what we're supposed to say? The unaliving of Jeffrey Epstein. And he says there is a video, not necessarily of the unaliving itself, but of the entire area. And there's no other person who possibly could have gotten there. So Epstein was alone. Also, Kash Patel yesterday on Fox also had something to say about Epstein.
The Epstein thing, you dealt with Maria. You said, as far as you know, he killed himself.
I'm telling you, he killed himself.
The other thing on the internet is the Epstein files. What's the answer to that?
The answer to that is the same as everything else. I'm not going to withhold information from the American public ever, but I'm also not going to rush to get it out there in a format in which they can't rely on it. So on the Epstein matter or any other matters, we are diligently working on that. And it takes time to go through years of investigations, years of political maneuvering, and years of cover-up to get the American people what they deserve. And that's what I'm going to give them.
All right. So Director Patel is asking for your patience. It's been years and years and years worth of paperwork about Epstein and the files. It's not like everything's sitting in a box. It takes a long time to go through. They're trying to protect the names of innocent people, the girls involved, and they are going to release it. That's what he says. You can decide whether you are willing to be more patient. Meanwhile, on January 6th, Kash Patel had a lot more to say, and it's quite intriguing.
More importantly, people have had questions about January 6th and whether or not there were FBI sources, not agents, sources on the ground during January 6th. And I told you I would get you the definitive answer to that, and we have. And we are in the process, again, of working with our partners to divulge that information, and it is coming. And I will tell you this, the answer to that question will surprise and shock people because of what past FBI leaders have said about it.
Former FBI Director Chris Wray eventually admitted to Congress there were 26 FBI confidential human sources in around the Capitol January 6th, but not actual agents. Can you say that's true? Are there more than that? What you're learning from that?
I can say that that is definitely a piece of the truth. Why it took a ton of time for and questioning in Congress for the director to get that point is what I'm trying to eliminate from the FBI. If Congress asks you a question under oath, whether or not there were sources in around January 6th at the Capitol, you as the director of the FBI need to know that and not deflect and give a DC answer. You have to be prepared for that. And that's the answer we're giving. That's the answer Chris Wray should have given.
And eventually everybody's going to know the whole picture.
Yeah, because the American people deserve that. And look, no one's more frustrated than me. Remember, I was chief of staff of the Department of Defense on January 6th. We said that we were ready, and the president had previously authorized the National Guard to be there days in advance. I spent 2 years, a small fortune, grand juries to testify to the truth. And what happens now, years later? We were right. Bowser and Pelosi rejected that offer. And instead of figuring out how to prevent security lapses like that ever again, the American public spent tens of millions of dollars and countless hours on TV listening to conspiracy theories because those in positions of leadership failed to tell the American public the truth.
All right, so that is definitive, and that is thorough, and that is, well, enticing to say the least. Kash Patel says that there's a whole lot that's going to be revealed about January 6th, what law enforcement knew, what FBI knew, what the DOJ knew, and what the members of that J6 Kangaroo Court Committee knew, led by Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger, and never revealed, never put out there on their made-for-television hearings. And he wants to reveal that very soon. So we'll stand by and we'll wait. It has only been about 100 days or less, actually, for Kash Patel. When did Dan Bongino get named? I think that was like the first week in March or the last week in February, you know. So they're getting there. They're getting there, and they're asking for your patience. So there you go. It's certainly a tale of two different directors when it comes to the FBI. You got Kash Patel, and then you got James Comey. And is there anything else I'm forgetting? I just want to make sure that I get everything out there. Oh, yeah. James Comey is an asshole. What can I tell you? Oh, I can tell you to buy our swag. Don't you want a Larry Town Hall mug? I know you do. If you like our show, then go to store.townhallmedia.com. Yes, you'll see lots of Larry swag. You'll also see lots of 5 o'clock somewhere swag, which is the live stream we do at PJ Media every week. If you're a VIP member, you know all about that. You can get glasses, you can get tumblers, you can get travel mugs, you can get shirts, you can get, it's not just Town Hall swag either, or Red State swag or Hot Air swag. It's also a bunch of MAGA stuff and pro-American stuff that you're going to love. So go to store.townhallmedia.com. The most important thing they have there is this mug. And I can tell you from firsthand experience, it works really well with wine. Really well. We have more breaking news. The ongoing fight between the federal courts and the Trump administration is continuing. Lawfare at its absolute worst. Yesterday, I told you that the Trump administration stopping the international student visas from going forward for Harvard or for any other school was lockdown solid. No court is going to stop them from doing that. That is 100% in the purview of the State Department and the administration, whether they're going to grant or not grant student visas, right? Remember when I told you that? Well, the judges are trying to stop it.
And happening now, Harvard University is facing off with President Trump in court over the White House's ban on international students. And all of this is happening as Harvard holds its commencement. As you see, the university president received a standing ovation after welcoming graduates from around the world, saying, quote, "just as it should be."
You got a very, very strong round of applause. CNN's Danny Freeman is joining us now from Harvard's campus, where commencement is clearly underway. And CNN's chief legal affairs correspondent Paula Reed is also standing by. Paula, let me go to you first. You have news out of the hearing. What are you learning?
You know, this high-stakes hearing in Boston this morning has just wrapped, and there, a federal judge made it clear that she will continue to block the Trump administration from ending Harvard's student visa program. So that ends their ability to host international students, because if you are an international student, you can only be enrolled in the U.S. in a school that has a valid student visa program.
Can I just pause there for a quick second? Because the language being used here is amazing. Judge to order Trump administration not to make changes to Harvard student visa program. And if you're an international student, you can only get enrolled in a school that has a student visa program. Can I just throw a little fact out there? Schools do not issue visas. The federal government, through the State Department, issues visas. So this whole idea of stopping Harvard Harvard does not have a student visa program. They have an admissions program for international students if they obtain a student visa from the State Department. What is wrong with these people? They're Harvard issuing student visas. They can't give people student visas. They're a school. And yet, this judge apparently doesn't quite understand that.
Now, she is leaving in place a temporary restraining order against this policy, and she's asking the two sides, both the administration and the school, to hash out what a more permanent block on this would look like.
You know, because Harvard has the right to have any student from any country, no matter what, come into this country, right? Wait, no, Harvard doesn't have the right to do that. What's this judge thinking? Well, this judge is thinking TDS. That's what this judge is thinking. Stop Trump at all costs. Democrats are incapable of doing it in Congress, and so they got their judges to do it.
Now, the university has argued that this attempt by the administration, this is a violation of their free speech and other constitutional rights. And interestingly, late last night, the administration took sort of a procedural step that appeared designed to upend today's hearing, which was expected to be one of the most significant developments in this ongoing battle between Harvard and the administration. They served the school with a notice that they intended to end this visa program. And that notice is a formal, again, a procedural step, but it gave the school 30 days to respond. And this is the kind of thing that in a court of law can potentially delay today's proceedings. The Justice Department tried to press the issue, but the judge wasn't having it. She said that she did not just want to leave this question open. She wants to maintain the status quo, which is a pause on this, but make it permanent. So now we're watching to see what, if anything, the two sides can agree on for a permanent block on this, while the larger constitutional questions are litigated over the next several months.
There are no larger constitutional questions. A university does not have the constitutional right to demand that they can bring in any student from any country without the federal government and the State Department signing off on it, period. It's not even close. Please show me where in the Constitution where our founders made sure that that was enshrined. All right, so that's the first decision that just happened about an hour ago. Then you've got this one from last night. Remember the parole program? This is a program that was instituted by Congress several years ago that allows Border Patrol agents, through their discretion, to allow some people to cross the border, even though they don't have documentations to do so, under certain emergency situations. It could be a medical emergency or some other emergency. The Biden administration, in their wisdom, in the final year of their presidency, they decided to expand the parole program, allowing for 30,000 illegal immigrants a month to be allowed into this country, just because Joe Biden and Alejandro Mayorkas and Kamala Harris said they wanted to. In fact, they exercised their discretion over the parole program to such an obscene level that they even sent American paid-for planes to places like Venezuela, loaded up those planes with citizens of a foreign country. Many of them, we're now learning, were criminals, murderers, rapists. We're learning that because they're murdering and raping here in America now. They got loaded up into the planes and they got flown here by the Biden administration. You paid for that. And that was all covered under the parole program. Now, let me just be clear. President Biden, through his executive action, decided unilaterally, without Congress, to just expand the parole program and do exactly what I just described. Donald Trump said when he was running for office that if he were elected, he would stop that. You heard him, you said thank you, and you voted for him. He won the election, he became president, and he did just that. He stopped that. And last night, a federal judge said that he can't do that. Again, Joe Biden unilaterally, as president, utilized an executive action and expanded parole. Donald Trump became president and unilaterally, through executive action, ended it. And a judge said he can't do that. Margot Cleveland of the Federalist. District Court enters order staying Trump administration's canceling of parole. That's where the aliens are given permission to remain in America. Trump administration concluded Biden's administration's use of categorical parole, which is paroling aliens into the U.S. by class and not on an individual basis, violated the statute. And in order undoing of orders and denying parole based on discretion, the court acknowledges it has limited jurisdiction, but says it can still review the decision to terminate the parole. And so they put a block on this move until they finish reviewing it. They're going to lose, but they're still trying to get in the way of the Trump administration actually doing what you wanted him to do, what he promised to do. Also yesterday, I mean, this is 3 in a row, 3 within 12 hours. A federal court that oversees trade issues in America, in New York, said that Trump doesn't have the authority to set tariffs. Now, this is amazing. And by the way, there are some commentators, even people who say that they're right of center and conservatives and constitutionalists, and they say, well, I might support President Trump's idea of tariffs, but the court made the right decision because tariffs are a tax and only Congress can levy a tax. But see, tariffs aren't a tax. You know how I know tariffs aren't a tax? Because they're called tariffs and not a tax. If tariffs were a tax, then they wouldn't be called tariffs. They'd be called a tax. And in fact, the Constitution and multiple statutes passed by Congress over the centuries have determined tax policy versus tariff policy. And the executive branch can set tariff policy. And by the way, the legislation employed in this law in particular said that the president can actually enact emergency provisions for tariffs if he so deems there to be an emergency. We've talked about this from the day President Trump put these sweeping tariffs in place, that he was enacting his emergency powers under existing legislation. If you watch this show, you know that that was the case. Now, we're going to get into the details of what the judges decided here, but even more so, we're going to tell you a part of this story that is not getting reported very much at all. And that is that the 3 judges that made this decision, this fix was in weeks ago because they were hand-selected to make this decision. They were hand-selected and deliberately placed on this case, knowing that they would deliver the decision they just delivered. That was reported weeks ago. We're going to give you the details of that coming up in a second because you're not getting that elsewhere. But first, Caroline Leavitt, just about a month and a half ago, made comments about this obscene miscarriage of justice that we've been seeing week after week after week, where federal judges do what I just laid out, these 3 decisions, where they overstep their bounds, they overstep their constitutional authority, and they do whatever they can to stop Donald Trump, not because of the law, not because of policy, not because of principle, but because they just want to stop Trump. Here's Caroline Leavitt speaking out.
The real constitutional crisis is taking place within our judicial branch, where district court judges in liberal districts across the country are abusing their power to unilaterally block President Trump's basic executive authority. We believe these judges are acting as judicial activists rather than honest arbiters of the law. And they have issued at least 12 injunctions against this administration in the past 14 days, often without citing any evidence or grounds for their lawsuits. This is part of a larger concerted effort by Democrat activists and nothing more than the continuation of the weaponization of justice against President Trump. Quick news flash to these liberal judges who are supporting their obstructionist efforts: 77 million Americans voted to elect this president. And each injunction is an abuse of the rule of law and an attempt to thwart the will of the people. As the president clearly stated in the Oval Office yesterday, we will comply with the law in the courts, but we will also continue to seek every legal remedy to ultimately overturn these radical injunctions and ensure President Trump's policies can be enacted.
All right. Now, here are the 3 judges that have made the decision. This is at the U.S. Court of International Trade in Manhattan. Judge Gary Katzman, Judge Timothy Reif, and Judge Jane Restani. Now, one of them is a Biden appointee. One of them is a Trump appointee, but a Democrat. See, sometimes you have to appoint Democrats, otherwise senators will block these things. The other one is a Republican appointee, but we're talking all the way back to the Reagan administration. We're talking 35 years ago. Those are the three judges. Now, earlier today on my Substack and on my VIP account on X, if you subscribe to me on Substack or on X, you will have seen this article. Hey, look, I got 3 kangaroos because it's a kangaroo court. I wrote about the trade court's rigged ruling. This is a stacked deck. It was already set up to block Trump. Yesterday, the U.S. Court of International Trade pulled the rug out from under President Donald Trump's Liberation Day tariffs, proving once again that the fix is in. It wasn't random judicial hiccup. It was a carefully orchestrated hit job. Chief Judge Mark Barnett, an Obama appointee, handpicked a panel to torpedo Trump's America First trade policies. The decision to block the tariffs, vital for reviving American jobs and curbing foreign exploitation, exposes a judiciary more interested in political games than justice. Now, real fast, I'll give you the background here. On April 2nd, Trump invoked the International Emergency Economic Powers Act. That's a law passed by Congress, signed by a previous president, the IEEPA. Duh. He declared the U.S. trade deficit, $1.2 trillion in goods, a national emergency. And his plan to fix that emergency was to institute a 10% tariff on all imports and steeper levies on serial trade abusers like China, Mexico, and Canada. These tariffs weren't just taxes. They're not taxes. They're tariffs. They were a lifeline to bring manufacturing back, secure the borders, and force fair trade deals. I should have also added to stop the flow of fentanyl, which is also an emergency and was also one of the reasons for enacting the Emergency Economic Powers Act. The 3-judge panel yesterday, Katzman is the Obama appointee, Reif is the Democrat, who is a Trump appointee, and Jane Restani is the Reagan appointee. They ruled that the IEEPA doesn't give Trump the power to impose such unbounded tariffs, dismissing the trade deficit as an unusual and extraordinary threat. Okay, now, here's where the fix was in. Deborah Heine, a great investigative reporter, reported earlier this month at American Greatness that a source close to the court revealed that Chief Judge Barnett deliberately stacked the deck. Let's go to Deborah Heine's article. This is at American Greatness, and notice the date, May 15th. May 15th, she reported this story. A 3-judge panel at the United States Court of International Trade in Lower Manhattan heard arguments in the case Tuesday and reportedly appeared skeptical of the president's arguments. If the panel decides that Trump's emergency declaration was unlawful, which they did, it would effectively block the president's global tariffs. The chief judge of the United States Court of International Trade is Mark A. Barnett, who joined the court in 2013 after a nomination from President Barack Obama. He became chief judge on April 6th, 2021. Who made him chief judge? Joe Biden. According to a well-placed source, rather than drawing the panel at random, which is the normal procedure, where you've got all these judges. This happens at district court judges, district courts a lot, or at appeals courts, right? At circuit courts, where who gets this case? Who's going to be the judge that gets this case? Well, it's a random drawing. You just pull the names out. Rather than do that, Chief Judge Barnett fixed the outcome by selecting. He hand-selected the 3 judges who he knew would override the rule, overrule the president and render his tariffs null and void. The source told American Greatness he was given this information by very reliable people who are very close to the court. 3 judges deliberating the case, as you know, we already just laid out who they are. The same panel is reportedly set to hear arguments in a parallel case brought by 12 state attorneys general on May 21st. The Courthouse News Service provides a rundown of the court proceedings, but we don't need to get into that because the court proceedings are done with. The fix was in. And there's no other way to say it. That this I think Stephen Miller called it a judicial coup that is going on. It's like every single day you see another story. Today we have 3 stories of judges who are overstepping their authority, overstepping the constitutional provisions that the judiciary is allowed to enact, and obviously going well beyond what their powers are. And in this case, you've got this Chief Justice Barnett who deliberately rigged it so that Trump's agenda would be thwarted, at least temporarily, at least for a while. If you're frustrated that not enough is getting done yet in this second Trump term, it's pretty clear why. It's pretty clear what's happening, and it's pretty clear that it's orchestrated. It's pretty clear that it's plotted and planned and quite deliberate. Something has to be done about this. Chief Justice John Roberts actually can exercise quite a bit of authority over a lot of these things, and so can the House of Representatives, if they have the courage to do it. All right, guys, you know what? Let's get to your super chats here if we can, real fast. We do have one more segment. Stay with us. We have a segment coming up about how, believe it or not, ecstasy, properly administered medically, could actually be a solution for a lot of vets suffering from debilitating PTSD. And I want you to hear about this. It's fascinating. But first, your super chats. Angela with a $5 super chat. Thank you, Angela. We love our Angel for our daily super chats from you. My gosh, you're so generous. Clown Show Comey is the last crook I would trust for personnel advice. How many of those career personnel would he recommend? They need pink slips. Yeah, that was atrocious what you saw from this guy. And, well, again, I don't know if he wants to run for office or if he wants to be. I think he wants to come back as the triumphant returning FBI director one day. I think he thinks that he's going to get named to the FBI again. We shall see. Ball State alum. Thanks, Jeff. $10 super chat. Well, Mr. Comey, tell me, what political party founded the KKK? What party did Johnson have to go to pass the Great Society? And what party did Lincoln belong to? Yeah, thank you. Thank you. And it's amazing to me how Republicans get tagged as the Klan and white supremacists when there's a pretty long history of pretty racist stuff coming from the great Democrat Party. Andy Armour with a $10 super chat. Who judges the judges? Well, like I said, Supreme Court Chief Justice John Roberts actually can discipline a lot of these federal judges, but ultimately you can have impeachment proceedings. It's happened before. Not based on, and again, I just want to be clear. I'm not calling for impeachments of judges who have different legal opinions. That's not the problem. The problem is that these federal judges should be impeached because they they're abusing their power. They're overstepping the power that they have constitutionally, and that's an abuse. That's corruption, and that's why they should be impeached. Thank you, Andy, for the question. And also from Arthur Brogdon over at Rumble, and we still can't figure out how to get our Rumble super chats here on the screen. $5 super chat from Arthur Brogdon. I've been selling my shocked face to Spec Force for years as high explosives. No clue what this means.
That last part was my addition.
Oh, the no clue what this means. I've been selling my shocked face to Spec Force for years as high explosives. Is it actually my shocked face, or is it an emoji of my shocked face? Is this a euphemism for ecstasy? Or for...
I have no clue.
All right, Arthur, I appreciate the $5 super chat, but dude, you're way over our heads right now. But that said, speaking of the idea of ecstasy and helping our vets, let's get right to it. As you know, we're very interested here in terms of the well-being of our military and certainly those who have retired from the military. It's a major focus of a lot of our conversations. And we're also very interested in new approaches to the health problems that many of our veterans experience, from PTSD to traumatic brain injury, all across the board. They deserve our finest health care. And that's why we're excited to bring to your attention the folks over at Pharmala. This is a fascinating new development that we want to explore, because what was kind of a popular street drug and party drug back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s might actually have a real medical use in the pharmaceutical community with regard to our veterans. Now, that's about as far as my knowledge on this goes. So let's bring in the experts. First, Nick Kadish is the founding CEO of Pharmala Biotech. And with him is retired Captain Adam Marr. Now, he is a decorated Apache pilot, 400 combat hours. He's also a best-selling author, co-author of Tales from the Blast Factory, and he's operations director at the Veteran Mental Health Leadership Coalition. So I guess, Captain Marr, you sort of have firsthand experience here about the effects of war and how you need as many, potential solutions to what ails you. And I guess that's why you're here to speak on behalf of this new development.
Yeah, that's right, Larry. And it's a real pleasure to be here with you today. Thanks for having us. Like you said, I was an Apache helicopter pilot. I served for about 10 years, 400 combat hours, 1,500 flight hours. And when I was getting out, it was actually my older brother, Special Forces Green Beret, Andrew Marr, where I saw the effects of war first. He came home, traumatic brain injury, post-traumatic stress disorder, 13 different symptom masking medications is what the military medical system put him on. So we began to search for alternative therapies. Both I, my younger brother, and other veterans like us were able to find these alternative therapies. And when you have something like traumatic brain injury, post-traumatic stress, anxiety, depression, treatment-resistant depression, sometimes treatment-resistant from all these medications that we're experiencing, being able to get access to something like MDMA-assisted therapy, some of the other plant-derived medicines like ibogaine or psilocybin, it fundamentally transforms you. And that was the experience with me. I was an atomic pilot, and so I did not have the ability to bring my engine power levers back to idle because I was attacking everything as a way of life.
Yeah, I listen, I want to hear more about what you went through, what you were experiencing, and how this MDMA therapy was able to help you. But let's cut to the chase here with Nick at Pharmala Biotech, because I sort of teased it along that this was a street drug. People took it, clubbing, MDMA. This is ecstasy. This is Molly, as the kids like to call it.
This is exactly that. But what a lot of people don't know is for about 30 years, MDMA has been the subject of clinical research, in university clinical trials, in corporate funded clinical trials, and it was actually designated a breakthrough therapy by the FDA. So there's more research behind MDMA assisted therapy than there is for a lot of the drugs that we use every single day. And one of the interesting things about it, of course, is you're not taking it at a nightclub. This isn't like a once a day pill. You are taking the drug while you're undergoing therapy. So we often hear from people say, what about diversion? What if this gets on the street? Can't really get on the street because you only get the pill when you go in to see your therapist, and you're only going to be doing this for 3 months. So it's a very time limited therapy.
And what does MDMA stand for again?
So MDMA stands for 3,4-methylene dioxymethamphetamine. Say that 3 times fast.
Yeah, anytime I need to say it, I'm going to turn to you. The problem is because it was ecstasy or Molly or club drug or street drug and everything. Obviously, immediately
it is a controlled substance.
There's going to be a negative reaction. It's a controlled substance. This is stuff that is going to screw you up and it's going to mess you up. So let's now focus on what appears to be a pretty great benefit. First, Captain Marr, tell me, you just said you were in attack mode all the time. I mean, all those combat missions in an Apache. I mean, that's a badass life that you lived there. But then when you come home, what was life like here? What were you dealing with?
Yeah, when I came home, I first saw it in my brother, and we started a nonprofit to start providing these solutions to our community. A lot of my trauma was from that attack mindset and not being able to be still, to be at peace, to be attacking everything as a way of life. So when I got experience to these modalities, these methodologies, it allowed me to finally be still and start to redefine the future and the life that I wanted, so I could show up and be a more complete father to my children, a more complete spouse to my wife. And then that started us where we started creating organizations and developing programs, partnering with scientists and leaders like Nick and others to be able to better understand these, but then to also be able to start to advocate for these at the legislative level. That's actually where I met Nick in partnership with Veteran Mental Health Leadership Advocacy Effort and Psychedelics Canada, which Nick is a part of. We actually advocated together in the halls of Canadian Parliament on behalf of Canadian veterans, not just U.S. veterans.
So if we could get Nick back on here, because how exactly does this work? Because the effects that Captain Marr was just describing, it sort of runs counterintuitive to what the street reputation of this drug was.
Yeah. So it's actually pretty remarkable. So if we were designing in a lab the best possible drug for the treatment of PTSD, you would want something that would allow somebody to go through in their mind, in their memory, the traumatic incidents that caused the PTSD, but without, triggering yourself. That's a real problem with treating PTSD is we put you in therapy, but then unfortunately, every time you think about whatever, the trauma is, the sort of the grain at the heart of your PTSD, you go into sort of fight or flight, right? Your adrenaline's pumping, your heart's racing, and
Sure.
you can't go through proper therapy in that condition. It's just not
Okay.
possible, right? I think anybody can understand that.
So
What
let so let
MDMA yeah,
let me
sorry,
be
go
clear
ahead.
here because I just want to make sure that
Yeah.
whenever I have a question as you're talking,
Yeah.
I assume our viewers and our listeners have the same question.
Of course.
So this is not one of those things where it's like, here's a bottle of pills, go and we'll
No.
see how you're doing a month from now. This is actually a tool that you're using during an actual sort of therapeutic program, right?
Absolutely. So it's 3 months of therapy, and you only go in for drug assisted therapy 1 day per month. So it's actually all in the entire therapeutic protocol is just 3 days. So you only take the drug 3 times. But
Wow.
what we
Okay.
found in both the clinical trials and now in the real world is after 3 sessions, about 70% of patients they don't have PTSD anymore. They lack the symptoms to be diagnosed as having PTSD. It's like a full cure for their PTSD symptoms.
So, Captain, I mean, at no point then it sounds like, based on what's being described here, is there any sort of danger of either you getting carried away with this drug or, God forbid, you sort of letting it out of your sight or it end up in some pusher's hands or something? This is all very controlled.
Right. It is very controlled, and this is part of what we're advocating for. We're advocating for programs to be able to be developed where you can go in and have the time to prepare to receive these doses, first in a medical and in a clinical setting. And then when you have that, you have these profound experiences, you have, these altered understandings of past traumas and things that you went through. But if you just leave it there, then that's not enough. You have to be able to have the support programs on the other side, the integration and support. And then another thing that we're finding is really important is that community to come back into. So these are the things that we advocate for within the veteran mental health when we go and we're at the state and the federal or the international level. We want to expand access. We want to drive policy reform. We want to support this research. We have to strengthen the infrastructure. And we do that by empowering veterans who have gone and fought for our country, whether that's the United States or Canada or wherever, because that's what our leadership asked us to do. We came home to a broken medical system, and we're dying at alarming rates. 120,000 veterans have died since 2001 by suicide. That's suicide. That's twice as much have died in combat in all of Vietnam. Let that sit in.
Well, and it's just a no-brainer that if this can help curb that or stop that, I mean, you got to try it. And real fast, Captain, before I get back to Nick, did you ever during your therapy feel any sort of addictive nature? Did you feel like, oh, I got to have another dose? I got to, did you feel like you were getting hooked on it or anything?
No, I never felt anything like that. What I felt was an extreme sense of love and connectedness. And I think when you boil it down to, I think love is one of the most powerful things on the entire planet. And
Wow.
so when you have a chance to be able to tap into that and view your past traumas, the things that happen in your life from a place of love and compassion, well, we need more of that in the world, and we need more leaders stepping forward in loving and compassionate ways. So
Well,
I
and
think it's an incredible experience.
I assumed one of the objections people might have is, oh, you'll get addicted, you'll get hooked on this. So Nick, obviously that's a firsthand experience that's not a concern. Other than Adam's personal results, how do we know that MDMA has worked for a good swath of vets in this case? Have there been studies?
Yeah, so lots of studies actually. More, like I said earlier, I think more studies on MDMA than a lot of the drugs that get approved these days. Again, because it is a controlled substance, I think that there's a lot more pressure to really get this right. But in addition to all the clinical trials, of which there's been 2 phase 3 clinical trials, they've been published in Nature, which is like a very good journal for scientific research. In addition to that, there's 2 countries in the world where Pharmala, our company, actually is allowed to treat patients, like regular people, with post-traumatic stress disorder, and that's Canada and Australia. And we get the results from those patients, I mean, day in, day out. And what we see is pretty remarkable. So, they have really, really debilitating symptoms to begin with. Obviously, they're not well. Then they go in for their first therapy session. That really helps. The second one, it helps a little bit. The third one helps a little bit. But the really remarkable thing is what happens 3 months and 6 months later, because these people continue to get better. Their quality of life improves. Their symptoms improve. And they're not being treated anymore. The drug part of this is done. It's just 3 times, right?
Yeah.
But they keep on getting better. It's a virtuous cycle.
It's interesting you should say that, because as I was listening to Adam, as he was recalling his therapy, you could almost see him sort of go into a happy place, like there was this sort of memory recall. So listen, I understand the FDA, I looked into this. The FDA looked at it about a year ago, determined that more research was needed. And now you've got a year's worth in Canada and Australia, certainly. But we've got a new FDA now. We got a new sheriff in town. You got Dr. Marty McCary over there at FDA. You've got Kennedy in charge of HHS. You've also got Doug Collins. He was a chaplain in the military running the VA as our new Secretary of the VA. I got to tell you, our show is seen by either those guys or people who work with those guys. What would you like to tell them right now? If Secretary Collins saw this interview, what do you want him to know for his vets?
Maybe I'll jump into this first and then Nick can follow up. I'm incredibly encouraged by Secretary Collins. I think he brings a lot of fresh vigor. He's out there having conversations. We just saw him on the Sean Ryan podcast, not too long ago. And he brought up the very point that we make. And that's that the VA this year is going to spend $500 million, right? $500 million on suicide prevention. But we have no statistical change in the amount of suicides that veterans are committing year over year. So he asked this question and I'll ask this question so he can be out there and raising the voice and raising the alarm. But we need more than conversations. We need the VA and the FDA to step up and to start taking practical action. And what we're saying is Nick is here. He's dedicated his career to this. I've dedicated my life to this. We have 50 plus organizations in our coalition. We have a multi-international thing. We're ready to come to the table. So I would say, Secretary Collins, I'll be looking forward to talking with you, sir.
I would just add, we do this all over the world. It's not just the United States. There's a whole big world out there. There's lots of folks struggling, and there's best practices in a lot of different places. What we've seen in the U.S. is the VA actually funds a lot of clinical trials with MDMA now, because I think a lot of folks at VA see the potential. I think the real problem now is coming up with a solution that's not just a VA solution. It's got to be like a VA solution. It's got to be an FDA solution. We got to really bring everyone to the same table and agree on a way forward. That's not just, it's the easiest thing in the world to just say, we need more research. Well, sure. Nobody's against more research, of course, but it's an out because there's real patients that really need help today, and the research isn't going to help them.
Nick, is there any science backing up the reluctance to this going forward? Or is it really, this is a political thing because of the stigma attached to this drug?
Look, I think that there's always reasonable concerns. Reasonable people always have concerns. I don't want to take anything away from that. But I think when you're asking the question of why hasn't this yet been approved with the body of evidence that exists for this therapy, I would say, these are political considerations.
And I would just add to that, when the veteran stands up and says, I was going to kill myself, but now I'm not because of this therapy. And by the way, over the last 20 years, we went and did what you asked us to do on foreign soil. Did you have the obligation to just listen to me and listen to my personal story of transformation? Now let's partner with Nick. Let's partner with the other leading scientists, the regulatory experts, and let's figure this thing out. Why are we having these experiences? Let's understand it.
Anytime you want people in charge of departments of the government like this to make a decision, there's going to be politics involved, and I understand. But that message right there, Captain, that's a pretty powerful message, I think, and it should sort of resonate with people. So one last thing, anyone who's watching this who doesn't work in Secretary Collins' office or in Dr. Marty McCary's office, anyone else who sort of wants more information or wants to maybe advance this idea and let the people know that they're in favor of at least trying this, what can they do? What do you want them to do?
Adam, you want to go first?
Yeah, I mean, you can reach out to me, LinkedIn, Instagram, the Veteran Mental Health Leadership Coalition.org, and reach out to us and let us know you want to support and be a part of the action. We're in multi-states. We're advocating on the Hill. And look, we're going to continue to prevent suicide and deaths of despair. We're going to do that by ensuring safe, affordable, equitable access to these emerging mental health treatments like MDMA assisted therapy for the veterans and all Americans in need. And when we do that, we're going to help reshape the future of mental health care through this research, advocacy, and community collaboration. So if you want to be a part of that, please reach out to me.
And for
Nick?
Farmala, I mean, we're a publicly traded company, so we're pretty available out there. We actually
Oh, there
trade
you go.
under the ticker symbol MDMA, so we're
Oh,
definitely
wow.
easy to find.
All right. Well, we'll leave it there. Captain, thank you for your service. Thank your brother for your service. The idea that you had to fly to Mexico to get this treatment after serving our country in the hellholes that you served, that's sort of weird, sort of unacceptable. Hopefully we can move the ball down the field on this. It seems like at the very least we should try this out. Let's just see if it makes a difference, especially considering the suicides and the PTSD that you're all suffering from. So thank you so much, Captain, for your service. Nick, thanks for the information. Appreciate it very much. And that'll wrap it up for this edition of Larry. Thank you so much for watching today. We'll be back at the same time, same place. In the meantime, my name's Larry O'Connor, and you can call me Larry.